illegally?
Okay, we've had several complaints. You're parked in your van with all the shades up. Parked in the covered window. Hold on. Right in front of a school. And all the kids are walking by. People are concerned with what you're doing here. I get it that you're legally parked, but not the greatest place if you just want to hang out. So you get why I'm here, right? A lot of parents. Many calls have come in. So, I'm contacting you to make sure you're not America's Most Wanted and what you're doing here.
No, I'm not America's Most Wanted.
What's that?
No, I'm not America's Most Wanted.
Okay, you got ID?
Have I committed a crime?
What's that?
Have I committed a crime?
Right now, no, you haven't.
Do you suspect me of having committed a crime?
It's a possibility. That's why I'm here. I'm conducting an investigation.
What crime do you suspect me of having committed?
I do not know if you're casing for children in the area. I do not know if you're casing to burglarize houses. Okay. So that's why I'm here talking to you. Okay.
I can understand that.
Okay. So are we going to go round and round and round, or are you going to your information?
No. I would love to answer all your questions.
Okay.
I would just like to do so with my lawyer present. So this is my lawyer's contact information.
Okay, whatever. I don't call lawyers. I don't wait for them to come out.
I'm just letting you know that I would be happy to answer any and all of your questions with my lawyer present only.
Okay. So where's his office? Let's drive there then.
You can give them a call right here.
Okay. I don't do that because I don't know who that is. So you're going to give me your information?
I'll give you my lawyer's information, and
Are you going to give me any of your information?
Not if I haven't committed a crime.
You need to leave.
For what purpose?
Because you're parked in front of a school zone, okay? And again, if you're not going to identify yourself and tell me who you are, we'll go round and round and round, but you need to leave this area if you want to park somewhere else. Okay?
So even though I'm not illegally parked, I'm just trying to get an understanding here, sir. So even though I'm not illegally parked, even though you don't suspect me of having committed a crime...
Well, that's why I'm here trying to figure out.
Well, you're
playing this game with me that you don't want to give your information.
I'm not playing.
Because if you haven't committed any crimes and you're not America's Most Wanted, you don't have any warrants, you would say, sure, no problem, officer. Here's my information, so we have no issues. I'll get your information.
No.
I'll run your record, make sure that you're not America's Most Wanted, and you won't let me finish talking, and then we'll be done.
I just understand what my rights are, and California is not a stop and identify state.
If I have a call that they believe some kind of I suspect possible criminal activity, I'm here to investigate it, which means now you're detained, okay? Because I'm here. You were the one that was described. This is the van that was described. This is the license plate that was described. Okay. Is this your van?
Again, I'll be happy to answer any and all of your questions in the presence of my lawyer.
I don't want to go around and around with you. If you live out of your van, fine. Okay? You need to park somewhere else, not in...
Welcome back, everybody. As many of you guys know, I'm a law enforcement trainer instructor. I train and instruct military and law enforcement all across the nation on various law enforcement disciplines to include constitutional law, case law, patrol tactics, investigations, use of force, etc. And so here in this video, I think this is a very interesting video. I'm not too impressed with the officer's delivery, but I do think there's a lot of important things that we can learn. So we're going to talk a little bit about constitutional case law a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about case law precedents. And we're going to sprinkle a little bit of investigations on there. Now, before we start this video, I need to make it very clear about my biases. I need to be real honest with you because I think honesty and transparency is important, and that's not something that's talked about enough. I don't think influencers, I don't think that people that are trying to relate information, I don't feel like they do a good enough job relating their bias, because I want you to take me seriously, but in order to do that, in order for you to really understand where I'm coming from, understanding my bias is super important. So I'm going to be very clear and honest with you. I have a very strong bias when it comes to the protection of children. I really do, and I'm going to be very unapologetic about that. I will say emphatically, without equivocation, I do not, and I will never apologize for how much I care about the safety and the innocence of children. Okay, so let me just be very clear up front, and I don't care. I don't care what the repercussions of that are. I'm just being honest. So I do have a bias when it comes to children. And to speak to the why, as of current, my current role, I am an ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force Sergeant. So that is what I do in my day-to-day law enforcement life, my day-to-day law enforcement profession. And so I do see some of the worst cases. I have taken some of the worst cases, and that is what I do. So I do, and I will say emphatically without equivocation, I don't care about your feelings. I really don't. I don't care about your feelings as to why you think that's important, or the reason why children should or shouldn't be protected. I don't care. So when it comes to what this officer did, as far as this officer kind of being a little forceful, me personally, I don't really care. I don't. Now, with that being said, I have another bias, right? My other bias is I am 100% absolute believer in constitutional law and people's rights, 110%. And again, I will be unapologetic about that. And I think there's a way that you can measure, and we can talk about doing good, solid police work, being sure you're thorough, making sure that the safety of children are paramount, and not violating people's rights. And that is the purpose of this video. So again, make no mistakes. If you think I'm going to come out here and be upset with the officer for trying as hard as he did, no. Should the officer have done it in a way better situation, in a way better manner? Absolutely. And again, this is why training is important, because people don't know what they don't know. So again, let me just be very clear about my biases, right? My current day-to-day life, I'm an ICAC task force sergeant. In fact, last week I got 16 hours notice to appear at Little Rock, Arkansas federal courthouse for a child predator that I had a case that got picked up by Homeland Security, and he was ultimately charged with 23 counts. I got 16 hours notice to be at Little Rock, Arkansas last week for court on that. So I do investigations at a very high level. Again, I'm not saying that to brag. That part is irrelevant. I don't care. I don't care. The only reason why I tell you this is because I want you to understand my nexus to my bias, right? My bias for wanting to protect children doesn't just come from nowhere, okay? So I only say that as a nexus to understanding why I care the way I do. And, before I did that, I was school resource officer coordinator for an entire school district. So for an entire school district, I managed and liaison all the criminal justice, police officer, manpower, that kind of thing. And so again, children is something that I take very seriously, and I think society does it well as we should. Okay, so again, I think it's super clear and important that I mention those biases to you, because I don't want anybody to, I will never want to use it as a crutch. And it just allows you to click off the video if you're like, okay, well, I understand it's biased and I don't want to watch it now. So I just want to make sure that we have that clear. Again, with that being said, 100% believe in the Constitution and 100% believe that we have to follow good case law precedents. So with that being said, let's talk about, as you guys have heard me talk over and over again in nausea, Brown v. Texas, 1979. And I will continue to talk about it because, again, I do believe it is an important case law. I believe it is something that we need to take extremely seriously. And I wish this was taught to all people. So the Supreme Court has affirmed that law enforcement needs reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime in order to detain and compel somebody to identify themselves. Again, building blocks of law enforcement here. So there's that. The next thing I think we need to talk about, without equivocation, is we need to talk about reasonable articulable suspicion case law. So we have Texas v. Brown. We also have a few other good ones. United States v. Cortez. We'll talk about that here in a second. Kansas v. Glover. We'll talk about that in a second. So there is reasonable articulable suspicion case law. And it's important to know that this did occur on a traffic stop. So again, the United States v. Cortez, that is going to matter. Kansas v. Glover, that is going to matter. So the fact that this was, technically it was a traffic stop only because he was in his car. Not really. I can't tell. I don't know if the police overhead lights are on or anything, but he made contact with somebody in a vehicle. And so that's what's important for that purpose. And so with that being said, that's the constitutional framework of it. Now let's talk about more of the investigative stuff, because I can tell you, and I don't know if the officer is being serious. And that's the unfortunate part of this. I really don't know if the officer is being serious. A lot of times officers say things in candor, and again, maybe I just don't get invited to all the cool parties, but he kept saying over and over again, hey, I want to make sure you're not America's Most Wanted. And I don't know. I don't know. Again, I don't know if he's trying to be humorous. I don't know if he's trying to break the ice here, or if he honestly thought this guy was on America's Most Wanted. I'm not sure. It's kind of like when an officer says, hey, and I don't know if you guys have seen this or heard this or even dealt with a police officer that has done this, but they'll say, hey, if they're going to do a Terry frisk or something like that, hey, do you have anything on you that's going to poke me, stick me, prod me? Do you have any guns, needles, knives, bazookas? And it's like, Okay, bazookas. Are you saying that because you're just trying to break the ice here, or are you seriously thinking you're going to find a bazooka? Right. In most cases, you can tell when they're just being humorous in their dry humor. Other times, you can't really tell if they're being serious. And so, unfortunately, in this video, I can't really tell if this guy's being serious. So we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and we're just going to assume that the stuff he says he means. Okay. So with that being said, we'll start with our first piece of case law that we're going to look at in regards to investigations. The United States v. Hensley, 1985, police bulletins and flyers. The United States Supreme Court has held that if a law enforcement wanted flyer or bulletin has been issued on the basis of articulable facts, supporting a reasonable suspicion that the person is wanted has committed a felony offense, then the reliance on that flyer justifies law enforcement to stop and check identification, so stop and compel identification, pose questions, and detain the person briefly while attempting to obtain further information. Again, United States v. Hensley, 1985. Now, why is that important? I know this is going to sound overly simplistic, and I'm not truly meaning it this way. Again, maybe I just, since I live in an investigative, heavy position, maybe I'm just taking this too easy at face value here. But if you truly believe somebody's on the America's Most Wanted, it's going to sound crazy, but a law enforcement officer can definitely get a copy of that bulletin and bolo. Actually, the everyday citizen, if you wanted to, you could Google America's Most Wanted, right? And you could see their picture and their name and the description of the crime. In fact, if you're a police officer and you contacted the Fusion Center, you could get a whole criminal history. You could get a whole bunch of information. And so if you truly believe this person, you had reasonable articulable suspicion to believe this person was on America's Most Wanted, you would be able to invoke United States v. Henley and compel the identification. Again, I know this sounds overly simplistic, but people don't know what they don't know. The next thing we're talking about is governmental interest, right? So police have unrestricted access to DMV, driver's license, warrant databases, as well as local police records. However, officers will need a valid law enforcement purpose to query NCIC databases. So let's talk about that. What is a valid law enforcement purpose? Well, according to the Bureau of Justice, a valid law enforcement purpose is defined as a purpose for information, intelligence gathering, development, or collection, use, retention, or sharing that furthers the authorized functions and activities of law enforcement agencies, which include the prevention of crime, ensuring safety, public protection of public or private structures, property, furthering officer safety, including situational awareness, homeland security, national security, adhering to laws and agency policy designed to protect privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties of Americans. Again, copy and paste that directly from the NCIC forum there. Comes straight from Bureau of Justice. So we go back. Governmental interest, right? What does this mean? Well, again, as somebody who investigates people regularly and who does this at a higher level, I can tell you, if I honestly felt like this was America's Most Wanted, I would, number one, from an officer safety standpoint, I would approach that contact a little differently. And number two, if I was super honestly worried about it, and I was worried about this person to that level, I would be utilizing every piece of investigative knowledge and prowess I have to identify that person. And based upon my current abilities, I feel very confident in a few minutes I'd be able to positively identify this person. Again, there's lots of means and methods out there, but there's a way to identify this person or at least get better information on this person. Number one, without violating their rights. And number two, while being a good police officer doing good investigations, especially if this is under the candor of wanting to protect a school. Because make no mistake, I believe everything this officer is saying in regards to getting many calls. I can tell you that happens regularly. People call regularly because people care about children. And you can call them Karens, you can call them whatever you want. I honestly don't care. You can say whatever you want, but when it comes to children, especially in today's day and age, people are very sensitive, I believe they should be, and people are more watchful now when it comes to children and contacts with children than they have ever had been previously, based upon my training experience. So I'm not surprised that this person got many calls called upon them. But at the same time, you also have to treat this person with respect and understand that without reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime, you cannot command and compel identification, nor can you do what this officer does and just say, okay, well, you have to move then. Well, no, you only give. I was always taught you only give lawful commands that you can lawfully give, because if I give you a command and I can't back it up, that just shows my lack of credibility, right? Now I'm dipping into my credibility tank and taking out credit that I may not have, and so I think that's super important to realize, recognize, understand. But again, most importantly, we have tools and programs and software out there that can assist you as an officer in, if you really feel that strongly about it, getting more information on this person. Again, as you saw, we talked about case law previously, Kansas v. Glover, People versus Bushley. These are case law precedences that allow us to query license plates and even query people. Because here's the thing a lot of people don't understand. If I can get your information from a constitutional means, not violating your constitutional rights, I can legally run it. A lot of people feel like I have to have probable cause of a crime to even run your name. That's not the case at all. I can absolutely run your information without probable cause or even reasonable suspicion. And I can do that from, again, this governmental interest standpoint. I can search to make sure you have a valid driver's license. I can search you for wants and warrants, right? I can do that. What I can't do is I can't violate your constitutional rights to get that information to then query it. And again, I know that's going to piss a lot of people off, and people are going to call me names and whatever. That's fine. Again, remember, when it comes to children, I don't care. I'm unequivocally, I don't care about your feelings about that. I'm always going to do what I feel is in the best interest of the child, but I will do so without, again, violating your constitutional rights. You have a right to not have your rights violated. You have constitutionally protected rights, and I will protect those rights because I have sworn an oath to. So I will undoubtedly protect those rights. But then again, you have to realize as a citizen that the Constitution has provided us constitutional case law precedents that, again, does allow us to use our law enforcement investigative tools to query and to look up information and to conduct thorough investigations. So again, there is two sides to that coin. And again, I know a lot of people don't like that. And again, my job is not to appease your comfort level. My job is to simply give you the truth and the reality of the situation we find ourselves in. And if you don't like that truth and reality, then it's up to you to advocate for your legislators to change that reality. But as we sit here, February 10th, 2025, this is the law of the land, and this has been affirmed by the Supreme Court, the court of last resort. So again, just to kind of recap here real quick, I do not like how this law enforcement officer talked to this citizen. I don't like how this police officer addressed this individual. This idea of America's Most Wanted, again, ridiculous. The idea that this officer is going to continuously harass this person or try to go around in this OODA loop of trying to get the person to submit to this officer's requests, because that's what they were. Very unprofessional, and just doesn't have to be that way. And again, as somebody that does do investigations at a high level, I assume that people are going to lie to me. So what do I have to do? I have to vet that information independently of that person's testimony. And I think that a lot of times officers they feel overwhelmed and they don't know how to do that. For example, the individual that I had to go to court on last week, 23 counts of just the worst child stuff you can imagine. 23 counts. As soon as I interviewed that individual, he immediately invoked his Fifth Amendment right, which he is legally allowed to do, as he probably should have. But we were able, as an investigator, I was able to go through the data. I was able to do my thorough investigation. I was able to go through all the legal means of investigation and eventually get 23 crimes to stick. Okay? And so I did that completely independent of his testimony. Okay? So as a police officer, you just have to assume that people are not going to talk to you and they're not just going to willingly give you all their crimes on a silver platter. So it's up to you as a police officer, it's up to you as an investigator to use your academic, constitutional, investigative prowess to independently verify and vet the criminal activity at foot that you believe is happening. Okay, and again, I know this video is probably not what a lot of you guys wanted to see, but it's the truth, and I think the truth matters. And again, I will applaud this officer for taking a strong stance, and I believe and I hope that he's taking the strong stance for the betterment of the children. Again, I find that nothing but honorable. And again, My biases are very clear. I care about children, and I care about the sanctity and the protection and the innocence of children, because there's a lot of monsters out there that want to hurt children. There's a saying out there, and it's not me. I don't know who quotes it. I know it's a female lady who does a lot of advocacy for children, but she states, predators will prey where children play. And that is very true. And again, I live in a different world. I operate in a very dark world of filth. And so again, I will never apologize for my pursuit of justice and accountability of pedophiles, of those that would hurt children. Again, you're not going to get me to apologize for that. Sorry, I'm not your guy. But with that being said, like I said before, we need to honor our constitutional rights of others, the oath that we swore an affirmation to, and we need to go about this from a lawful perspective and being ever diligent to, again, ensure that we have our academic investigative prowess to that level, that if we do come in contact with a citizen that doesn't want to interact with us, that's fine. We must respect their constitutional rights. We shall respect their constitutional rights, and we shall go through the legislative, investigative means that we have that have been carved out for us by the United States Supreme Court. So there you have it. If you guys like this content, please let me know. If you like, please like, share, subscribe. And as always, guys, long live the Republic.